Hello, it is Angela. It is I. I am here with a video idea. I don't know if anyone's going to be interested in it, but I was interested in doing it because I really wanted to know the answer to the question, how dupable is my Pan That palette? Did I make a good choice in selecting the shades that I did? Let me, say first what I will be doing in this video. I will be taking every shade from this palette and trying to find a dupe in my collection for that shadow. This is my Pan That palette. I had someone comment saying that its name should be Sweet Rainbows, and I really liked it. It's called Sweet Rainbows though because it is a mix of two ColourPop palettes, Sweet Talk and Chasing Rainbows. This is Sweet Rainbows. Right now, I don't have any of these shades on my eyes. I just have Wiggles setting my concealer. Today is January 19th. Just so you know, I'm pre-filming. I'm a smart planning lady. I did Pan That palette for the first time last year, and I'm doing it again this year. But last year, my Pan That palette was Brown Sugar, ColourPop's Brown Sugar. I just covered it in Mod Podge and glitter that I don't like using. So I bought this earlier on into my makeup career. No regrets buying Brown Sugar. It was a really great neutral palette. I'll pop up a picture of it. But the reason I decided to pan it was not only because it was 9 shades, so it wasn't as intimidating as other palettes I had in my collection, but it was also because it was a neutral palette, and I realized very quickly that neutrals aren't my thing. I like neutrals. I will do a neutral look and be super happy, but I tend to be really happy with either doing a neutral and a spin on neutral, like a bright shadow somewhere in the neutral look, or I'm happiest with colors. I'm very, very happy with colors. I love the way neutral looks look, but when I do makeup, I really love experimenting with color. That's why I decided to pan Brown Sugar over a year ago. And that's what Pan That palette is for me. I pick the thing I want to pan based on, is it neutral or are the shades repetitive? So for this palette that I assembled this year, I put in a bunch of neutral shadows. I really wanted to use this little container again. I was limited in specifically using ColourPop shadows that were this size. I didn't have any other brands with shadow pans this size. So I had to pick from a limited amount of ColourPop shadows, but I still ended up picking a lot of neutral shadows. Then I added in a couple of shadows that I really, really love, and I thought that they were unique in my collection. I'm specifically talking, and this is what inspired the video, I'm specifically talking about Melody, which is from the Sweet Talk palette. I was actually kind of sad about panning Melody. You should pan your favorite things too. You shouldn't just do a Pan That palette on shadows you don't like. So I was like, okay, like just throw in Melody. It'll be a nice spot in your project. And I realized in the video that I did where I was finding my favorite eyeshadows from each palette, I realized that I have an exact dupe for Melody in another ColourPop palette. So like my apprehension about panning this shadow completely went away because I found a dupe for it in my collection. To me, my collection isn't that big. It's below 300. So it's big, but not the biggest. So for me to find an exact dupe of Melody in my collection within the same brand, I was like, what? It totally flipped around. I was like, well, I'm happy now that I'm panning Melody because I have an exact shadow somewhere else in my collection. And it got me thinking like, well, what other of these shadows are repetitive in my collection? Like, I want to know. That's where I'm at with this. Sorry for such a long-winded discussion on dupes in my collection and why I do pan that palette specifically. Also, Lauren May Beauty is a huge inspiration for me with finding dupes within my collection. She does so many videos about working within your own collection, picking from your own collection, instead of going out and like buying a palette. She's not like anti-buying stuff, but she is, I think, attempting to be more mindful about what's in her collection. I love her channel and I love the videos of her playing with her single shadows. I want to be able to do that eventually on my own channel, so hopefully that will be up and running at some point. This video is all about knowledge and trying to see how repetitive is my collection, just looking at it from this window of color. Let's begin with Wiggles. Could I find a dupe in it? Who knows? So I did a lot of pre-planning to do this video. Be proud of me. I am a prepared bitch today. So I did video things. You're gonna see me in the mirror, but that's okay, you know, that's okay. Let's go from top to bottom. At the very top of all of these is the shadow from this palette. So Wiggles is at the very top. Right below it is Kezzy from Magic Mini Juvia's Place originally. Next is It's Designer from the Too Faced Pretty Rich palette that my in-laws gave me, basically. Below that is from the Berries and Cream palette. Sweet Cream did not look at all like Wiggles, but I wanted to see. I was very thorough. I swatched things that I was like, I know that's not going to work, but maybe in the swatch it will look different. Colors look different when they're with other colors, and you can only really tell the truth of a color by putting it next to other colors, like switching it up. So it's Wiggles, Kezzy, It's Designer, Sweet Cream, and then the next one is Catch Me from Sweet Talk. This one I knew was going to be too pinky, but again, I wanted to be thorough. And then this one, even though it's a sequin matte, I wanted to see how Shining Moon looked. So every round we're going to decide which shadow was the best dupe in my collection. And in my collection, the best dupe I think was Kezzy, even though it's not a dupe. If you can even tell because of my skin tone, Wiggles is much more peachy and pinky. You can kind of tell in that angle. Wiggles is much more pinky and peachy, very, very light, and Kezzy is much more yellow toned. Also, along this video, I'm going to decide, is that a winner? Like, was it worth it to put that shadow in my Pan That palette? And it is totally worth it to put Wiggles in my Pan That palette. Not only do I use it every day to set concealer or to blend out the edges of a look, I don't really care about cream shadows, and there's so much product in this Kezzy pan alone. Like, I'm set on cream shadow. For me, totally worth it to have Wiggles in my Pan That palette. For this next one, it is West Side, this shadow right here. And my guess before I did this was that I had a lot of shadows like this, like a mid-tone, neutrally warm brown. And I was right. I had a lot of shadows to work with. Not a lot of them were perfect, but I did have a lot. The first one's always going to be the shadow in my Pan That palette. The second one is Feeling It from the Chasing Rainbows palette. Feeling It. The third one is Jamocha. Jamocha. The fourth one is Super Swanky from my Morphe Such a Gem palette. Super Swanky. Right there. The next one is from Too Faced Pretty Rich. It's called It's Cashmere. Cashmere. And the ones below that are Realgar from Modern Renaissance and Red Ochre from Modern Renaissance. Realgar and Red Ochre. I think it's those. So there's a lot of shadows in there. Some were more orangey, some were more red. But I actually think I did find a pretty good dupe. And it is from Brown Sugar. It's Jamocha from Brown Sugar. So that's Jamocha right now, and that is how it looks swatched. Is it a perfect dupe? No. West Side is a little more warm to me, but they look so close. If they're on the eye, probably gonna look the same. I think I found a good dupe. So was it worth it to have West Side from the Sweet Talk palette in my Pan That palette? Yes. The next shadow in my Pan That palette that we will tackle is Meadow from the Sweet Talk palette, currently in my Pan That palette. I had, it's kind of shameful, not shameful, like don't be ashamed of the stuff you have, like that you earned and all of that. But I never knew how much I was attracted to pink until I started to buy eyeshadow palettes. There's a lot of pink and red and purple in my collection. The first one is Meadow from the Sweet Talk palette, which is in my Pan That palette. Second one is Froze from the Main Squeeze ColourPop palette. We got Froze. Third one is Dreammaker from Sweet Talk. Dreammaker from Sweet Talk is still in its little spot. There is Woke from Chasing Rainbows and Wish List from Chasing Rainbows. So that's Woke, and this is Wish List. And then it's Skyline from Strawberry Dreams. Skyline, Meteorite, and Tuxedo Rose. Meteorite, I tried Tuxedo Rose, which I knew was going to be too bright, but I still want to see. Tuxedo Rose is actually right there in my eyes right now. Which one did I think was the best dupe? And I actually think the best dupe is Dreammaker from the Sweet Talk palette. This was something I had a criticism of when I really got to know the Sweet Talk palette, was that there were two matte pinks that looked almost exactly the same. There is the slightest of differences. One's slightly less bright pink, and that is Meadow. It's, to me, ridiculous that I could find a really, really close dupe from a shadow that was in Meadow's own palette. So you're gonna find out that in this video, ColourPop disappointed me.
I don't need friends, they disappoint me.
I love that meme. For blurred lines, this white gold in my Pan That palette. Blurred lines was from the Chasing Rainbows palette. Lightning from Sweet Dream, right there. Then, even though I knew that this was probably going to be more silvery, I wanted to see how Shockwave looked. There is Silver Millennium. I wanted to see if Catch the Light from Such a Gem would work. And I know it's like more taupey, but I just wanted to see. Remember, I was trying to be real thorough. The thing is, I really couldn't find a dupe for Blurred Lines. So these are the best options. There's Silver Millennium from Sailor Moon and Lightning from the Sweet Dreams palette. The Sweet Dream palette. I keep saying dreams and it's just dream, okay? But yeah, I would say Lightning is closer to Blurred Lines, but Lightning has a much stronger yellow reflect. Blurred Lines is much more of a white with yellow particles in it. And Silver Millennium comes off much more champagne-y next to it than it looked in the other swatches. So is it worth it for me to finish up Blurred Lines? In my criteria, no. So we got 3 yeses, 1 no. I still think it's worth it for Blurred Lines to be in my project, but I did not have a dupe. Let's move on to the next one. The next one we're going to cover will be Melody, right in the middle there from the Sweet Talk palette. And you already know what will be the best dupe, but I'll still run through what's in this little video right now to the side. The first one is obviously Melody, but the next one below it is Juicy Fruit from the Main Squeeze palette. Then I kind of really want to try to see how this one looked. It's Extra Oomph. Totally doesn't have the right reflect. The next one is Garden Date from the Sweet Talk palette right there. It is totally not similar to, oh my god, what's the word? To Melody at all, but I still wanted to see. I think this shadow is so pretty. The next one that totally does not look like it, this is Princess Cut from Pretty Rich, and it is much more purpley pink and has glittery particles in it. I did not anticipate that. The next one is Birthday Treat, which is a ColourPop Super Shock. A lot of them weren't exactly like Melody at all. They were just kind of pinky shimmers. But as you know, the best dupe, oh my gosh, I swatched bad. The best dupe for Melody was Main Squeeze's Juicy Fruit. Ridiculous, right? Like how the shadows look the same. I can't see the difference. On the website, they describe Melody as having a rose base, I believe, and Juicy Fruit as having a coral base. Yeah, another moment where ColourPop really disappointed me. Is it worth it then to have this shadow in my Pan That palette? And yes, it is. I have an exact dupe in another palette in the same formula. Let's move on to Eclipse. There is Eclipse, then Snake Eyes which is a ColourPop single. Then below Snake Eyes is Saltwater from the Be a Mermaid and Make Waves palette. Then I picked Prickly Pear, which is a ColourPop Super Shock. That's currently in my whole collection, Project Pan. I wanted to see if Eternal Light from Celestial Storm would look good. That is Eternal Light from Celestial Storm. And below Eternal Light from Celestial Storm is Making Bank, which is from my Such a Gem Morphe palette. But the ones, and I said ones, that I think are the best dupes are Saltwater from the Tarte palette and Snake Eyes. And I actually think Snake Eyes wins just barely over Saltwater. There you go. What do you think? Do you see the redder undertone in Saltwater? You can kind of see it in the pan as well. Is it worth it to have Eclipse in my pan that palette? Definitely. I have two shadows that are very close to being dupes, and one that I think that actually is a dupe. It's in the same formula, and it's this giant pan of product. I don't think I could get through both of those anytime soon. Like, it's going to be years. And on top of that, I have this Tarte shadow and several others that are close, like Prickly Pear. I have a lot of shadows. The next shadow is ICYMI right here. It's a terracotta-y shadow. It's at the top in this video. So You Peel Me from the Orangey Glad palette is right below. Seed Money from Main Squeeze. Now I'm like wondering if Big Gulp, wait, am I crazy? I maybe wasn't thorough enough. Less terracotta and more orangey is Lunar Eclipse from the Celestial Storm palette by Dominique Cosmetics. So below Lunar Eclipse is first Pepper and then Casey from the e.l.f. J. Kissa palette. So that's Kogi from the Magic Mini palette, Juvia's Place Magic Mini palette. And then I wanted to see how Meteorite looked up here. From the Psyche's box, I tried out the Mask. I think that's how you pronounce it. I knew it'd be too red, but I wanted to see. Going back to the Magic Mini, where Kogi was really red, I was like, wait, but how does this one look? I don't remember the name of that shadow, but it's a matte pumpkin. I'll put up its name. So that's all I swatched for just ICYMI. And man, that's a lot. Just a lot of reds and reddy oranges, and they're all mattes. It's like I have more that are shimmers. So it's just like a little overwhelming. Not many of them really look like ICYMI. A lot of them are more red, a lot of them are more orange, but still, wow, that's a lot. So I swatched out Big Gulp from the Main Squeeze palette. I just did that right now because I was like, wait, is that a good dupe? And to me, that is a little bit more red, but there is ICYMI from the Sweet Talk palette, and below it is You Peel Me from the Orangey Glad palette. I think that is the better dupe than Big Gulp. I was paranoid, I wanted to see. You Peel Me is a touch more orange for sure. I know it's like gonna be a slight tone difference, like this will make your look lean slightly more orange and this will make your look lean slightly more terracotta, but they would function the same in a look for me. To me, even though there's not a perfect dupe for ICYMI in my collection, it is still worth it to have it in my Pan That palette. Now we're moving on to Prism from the Chasing Rainbows palette. I had a feeling there wouldn't be a lot of options, and thankfully I was right. First, Prism, and then second, it's Eclipse from the Psyche's Box palette. Then the third one is Blackberry from the Dominique Cosmetics Berries and Cream. Below Blackberry is Rowdy from the Subculture palette. Also, what I learned from this is that I have 3 sparkly black shadows that I didn't bother to swatch out because they were markedly sparkly. I'll just show you those for fun right now. 2 of the sparkly black shadows are from my Such a Gem palette. This one's Garnet Glam and this one's Rocks On. The third sparkly black shadow I have is Coal Under Pressure. The best dupe in my collection to Prism is Rowdy from the Subculture palette, which is described as a deep burgundy, but to me it's just a warm toned black. And that is Prism up above. Let me build it up more. Let me see if I can build it up more. So I found out that I have 2 black shadows that are more true black, which is Blackberry from the Dominique Cosmetics palette and Eclipse from the Psyche's box. Those are more like cool tone black shadows. Prism from Chasing Rainbows originally and Rowdy from Subculture actually are warm toned black shadows. So there you go. Wow, we learn something new every day. Prism is definitely worth it to have in my collection. I don't use black a lot. I have plenty of black shadows. In my opinion, I have a huge pan of black shadow in the Dominique Cosmetics Berries and Cream palette. For me, I have a lot, and I don't know when I'm ever going to use up the sparkly black shadows, but probably never. Probably never. The next shadow in my Pan That palette is Feel Free from the Sweet Talk palette. And I thought I had more shadows like this in my collection, but turns out I do have a lot like this, but they're a lot more purpley toned, but not red brown like Feel Free. And I didn't realize that. Like, they look markedly different. It's Feel Free, red bottoms from the Main Squeeze palette, and then in the second row to the far right in my Such a Gem Morphe palette is That's Tempting, which I looked online is described as a matte mahogany rust, and I love that description. Well done. Matte mahogany rust. I don't know why that like gets my soul so hard, but it does. And then below That's Tempting is from the Chasing Rainbows palette, which is Realness. This one right here. And then, oh, in the same palette, I think this is All Star right below Realness. I think from all those swatches that the best dupe to Feel Free is Realness from the Chasing Rainbows palette. I think that's a really good dupe, and it's another case where ColourPop duped itself, in my opinion. There's Wiggles with Kezi, and then West Side with Jamocha, Meadow with Dreammaker, I think, Blurred Lines with Silver Millennium. That isn't really that good of a dupe, so ignore that. Look at, yeah, Lightning. There is Melody and Juicy Fruit. Eclipse with Salt Water and Snake Eyes. ICYMI with You Peel Me. Prism with Rowdy. And Feel Free with Realness. I think out of all of these, I found a dupe except for Blurred Lines. And technically Wiggles, but to me, that's totally fine. Kezi is more yellow tone, but that's fine. So really, 1 out of 9 shadows is not worth it for me to pan.
But yeah, I hope you're doing well mentally and physically, and I hope you're keeping track of human rights issues and trying to be more kind and patient with others, and I hope you get inspired today, and I have a lot of things that I hope for you.
But just try to be safe out there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did find this interesting, I would love to hear your thoughts. In conclusion though, I think I made good choices with my Pan That palette. I wouldn't change anything, I don't think. 6 out of 9 of my shadows in my Pan That palette, I found a ColourPop dupe for the ColourPop shades. That's crazy to me, but it happened. So again, not all of them are exactly the same, but I think it turned out pretty cool. Oh no, I think that's pretty fun. Okay, bye. I need to go before my in-laws come and they're like, see me surrounded by palettes and my arms covered with colors. I'm gonna go. Bye. But yeah, please let me know if you like this. I would love to know what you think. Also, do you like the look? I don't know. I think I'm being too needy. I'm being too needy. Bye. Goodbye.